One of those who led the charge against the data retention proposal the last time round was the Greens Senator Scott Ludlam. I spoke to him a short time ago. Scott Ludlam, welcome to Capitol Hill. Are you surprised to see the proposal for data retention come back onto the agenda?
Not really. This has been running since I've been around, since 2009. The project or the proposal for data retention has been knocked over twice. It doesn't surprise me at all that the Abbott government's pursuing it.
But this has come from a Labor Party MP, someone who's on the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence. Does it surprise you it came from Labor?
Well, I'm honestly not sure where Labor has landed on data retention, because there are at least 3 proposals I'm aware of for reforms to national security or surveillance legislation. Not really clear what Mr Byrne was referring to last night, whether it's data retention, expanded ASIO powers, or what exactly, until Attorney General George Brandis actually shows his hand and, rather than running the issue through the media, actually provides the Parliament with a bill. We won't really know where people stand.
Can you see any circumstances in which data retention with the right safeguards could be made to work?
The problem is, as has been discovered at great cost in the United States with the Snowden revelations, is if you collect the material, it'll be abused. If you don't collect data and private information that has no real use, then it can't be abused and your privacy can't be violated. I think that's a really important principle that we should give regard to before we start talking about safeguards. Whether we get a data retention regime or not, and the Greens will fight that if it's brought forward, we need additional safeguards around the material that already does exist. So there's two debates to have there.
On the question of safeguards, it does seem at the moment the chapter of the committee's report that the Attorney General is acting on does not include many of the safeguards that the committee recommended. Would the Greens in the Senate be trying to put some of those safeguards into any legislation you see?
A bit dangerous to speak in hypotheticals, but you're right. And it's, I think, tells us a bit about Attorney General George Brandis. There's a lot of quite sensible material in that Joint Committee report. Instead of going for the whole thing, they've cherry-picked the part where ASIO gets sweeping expansions of its already very powerful surveillance authority, and most of the safeguards are in other parts of the document. Again, let's wait and see what kind of proposals they put forward, but I don't want to see this played out on the front page of the paper. I think because these reforms are so sensitive, they really do need to be submitted to the cold light of committee review and given a little bit of time for us to work through it.
Do you accept that Australia's intelligence and law enforcement agencies have done a very good job so far protecting Australia from terrorism, given that there have been no terrorist attacks on Australian soil, and if they ask for increased powers, they would be doing so for a good reason?
Let's see what the increased powers are that they're asking for. I agree with the basic question, though, that we have been protected somewhat, partly because of where we are in the world and partly because of good intelligence and police work, and there's no question about that. These agencies already have sweeping powers, though, and I think it should always be, the burden of proof should always be on, well, show us why you need data retention and why you need to be surveilling the entire Australian population. That you know, what do you need those powers for, and what powers didn't you have 10 years ago that you need now? That's where the burden of proof should be.
If I could ask you on a more immediate matter, the debate over the carbon bills in the Senate. The government is saying at the moment it won't guillotine the debate through. It's happy to sit the Parliament on Friday, on the weekend, bring it back next week. Is it worth, though, continuing to debate these bills at length this week when the government has the numbers to get them through?
I'm not sure that the government does. I mean, the Abbott government spent all of last week with its shoelaces tied together, stumbling around, knocking furniture over. So
it does have a commitment, though, now from Clive Palmer and his party that it will support them.
Well, we'll see. I suspect you're right, but I think in a parliament as volatile as this, you don't want to be making really strong predictions about things that might happen. The Greens have a very clear view, and to me the length of time that the bills are debated is less important than the fact that we will be the first country in the world to unwind a functioning carbon price mechanism. And the Abbott government still screeching about the mandate that it got last September. It was a mandate built on lies. They lied their way into office and told people it was going to push costs up catastrophically, and now we're hearing all the way through the economy, people saying actually there's no money to hand back because prices didn't really go up.
Will your party speak as long as you can on these bills, or at some point will you say, well, we've spoken enough, spoken at length over many years on this sort of issue, it's time to have a vote?
There's no point pulling a filibuster and trying to talk it into 4 o'clock in the morning, and that is not at all conducive to good lawmaking. The issue that we've got, though, and what I think should take a proper period of time and should in fact really be reviewed by a committee, is these amendments by the Palmer United Party that no one had seen. No one really knows how they're going to operate. I don't think we should be in so much of a rush to crash the clean energy sector and roll the price back that we wouldn't review to see how those amendments are going to work.
Scott Ludlam, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.